We've got speakers who are going to try to call in from prison, and then we also have some advocates on the outside here. I need to get my notes up. All right, so I just want to welcome everybody. I'm Ben Turk. I'm a volunteer with Forum for Understanding Prisons. I want to thank you all for putting up with technology challenges. I wish that we could be meeting in person, that we could be gathering somewhere. Oh, I'm getting a call right now.
Hello, you have a call at no expense.
So this is either,
an inmate at
that's Kenneth Gray.
correctional institution. To accept this call, press or say 5. To refuse this call, hang up all calls other than properly 5. Monitored and recorded. Thank you for using IT Solutions.
Hello, Kenneth? Yeah, hold on. We're gonna have to. Does this work? No, this we were hoping.
Oh.
I'm here.
Those of you on this call, can you hear? We have a lot of echoes. Those of you on the meeting, nope. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, so we're having feedback and echo issues. I was hoping that this would just merge in.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
This?
I can, if you put that on, not on speaker. Can everyone hear us on the call? Okay. Can you hear our speaker if he talks? Can you ask Kenneth to speak?
Kenneth, can you speak?
I can hear you, but that's it.
Okay.
Is he speaking?
Yeah, his call isn't going to show up.
So it sounds like your audio is not picking up for some reason. Let's just put him on speaker and come through and cut the other call that is.
On the meeting? Those of you on the meeting, can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah.
So we are going to try to play Kenneth, let Kenneth speak here over speakerphone. If someone can give me a thumbs up on your screen that you can hear him while he starts talking. Kenneth, go ahead.
Hello. What would you like me to say?
So, Kenneth, if you could just give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself and your situation, and then.
All right. Sorry.
All right. My name is Kenneth Montreal Gray. I'm currently serving 30 years for first-degree reckless homicide. I was arrested in 1995 at the age of 14 years old.
I was waived into an adult court when I was 15. I sought parole at least maybe 13 times. I'm presently 4 years past my release date as we speak. My mandatory release was in July 19th of 2016. Parole chairperson Landerman at the time thought it was in the benefit of the community to keep me past my release date. However, I completed all programs. I haven't been problematic or anything. At the time, I was in Fox Lake Correctional Institution, but what he explained it is that he wanted me to transition down into the community, so I had to go from max to medium to secure minimum, eventually to a center. However, that didn't take place, and as a result, for him implementing the PMR statute, he gave me a 9-month defer and sent me to Oak Hill. And from there, I was in LaCroix's hand, who continued to just give me a 6 and a 7 and stuff like that. And just pretty much it seemed as though they had it, I guess, to pretty much make me do every bit of this 30 years. As it stands now, I'm 25 years in, and I'm old law.
So yeah, we're gonna introduce and explain old law a little bit more, but I just want to maybe get to me, the core of the situation with the old law prisoners is that the commissioners have a self-interest to keep their jobs by continually deferring people, and I think that's why you and so many other people are having the kind of experiences that they're having. And so in the face of coronavirus and in this pandemic, you are in a situation where you are at risk and everyone else is at risk because of the overcrowded facilities. And really the reason that it's happening is just the selfishness of these parole commissioners. And yeah, how does it feel to be in that situation under those kinds of circumstances?
This is a petri dish for just a disease. It's even back in the day, if one person caught the common cold or a flu, you had a whole cell or a whole unit that will catch the same thing. So it's not the question of if it's going to come. The question is when. And granted that the institution has given us face masks and pretty much separated us by tiers and everything and by union. However, it's just, I guess everybody waiting with bated breath because they know it's
Calls
going to...
other than properly placed. Attorney calls may be monitored and recorded.
Because we know it's going to happen. And the question is just how bad it is. And, you know, when I sit back and think like, well, I shouldn't be here anyway to be subjugated to being in the position to where I can get sick. I mean, how else? What do you do? You know, other than buy some extra vitamin C tablets and stuff like that and try to stay as healthy and away from as many people as possible with the hope that you won't catch any disease, let alone corona or a common cold. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So you called earlier today and you had an update about Executive Directive 31. Can you share with everybody what you had heard?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, based on the email that, it was Peggy Swan, it was the community, and everyone was discussing it, based on that we were old law, and we pretty much can, I guess, submit something to the warden. So what I had did was get written an interview request to the warden to ask him about the executive order at first, 31. I thought it was an executive order. However, when I realized that it was called the executive director, me and the social worker, we were going back and forth, and when we discovered what it was. So I don't know how it happened. Either she emailed someone at the records office or whatever, but she later called me into her office and she said that the parole commissioner had emailed her, the records office, as well as the warden here in Racine, and in his email to the warden that I will be submitting a letter, I suppose a letter of an endorsement to him concerning the executive order 19, not under any extenuating circumstances or extraordinary circumstances but simply I believe it's the third paragraph where it's the disproportionate part of my sentence, since I'm pretty much on track to do truth in sentences. So I've written a letter within 4 paragraphs long. And the first letter that I articulated was that, hey, this is the reason why I'm writing, based on the email that was sent to his office by Parole Commissioner Tate. The second one was the time that I had in, and I pretty much made the distinction that I'm Wisconsin's youngest inmate who's been locked up the longest, minus the life sentence. And I also discussed my conduct, my past. It hasn't been ideal, if you will. I'll be the first to state that my conduct has been tumultuous. I was a young kid in prison. And my third paragraph was simply, hey, I have a support system, and I completed all my programs and then some. I'm just ready to go. And also that I've been admitted to the University of Oshkosh. It's just, it seems as though I'm just wasting dead space or doing dead time, because I really don't have anything to do in this institution other than bust the floors at midnight. And I haven't heard anything back from anyone yet.
We have a reporter on the call, Isaiah Holmes from the Wisconsin Examiner, and I wanted to give him a chance. I'm going to unmute him so that if he has any questions for you before the phone cuts you off, you'll have a chance to answer. Isaiah, can you?
Yeah, I'm actually, I actually didn't have any questions.
Are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me now?
Then, Peggy, do you want to talk about Executive Order 31 and what you've been working with that for
Can you hear me?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
what this news means?
Pardon me?
I'm gonna, Peggy Swan is on the phone here too.
You don't know.
Hello, Miss Swan. How are you?
I think she's good.
I think, Peggy, you are.
There she goes. Oh, she's right. She's ready.
Okay.
I'm okay? Hello?
Hello?
Peggy, can you?
I'm trying to talk.
Hello?
Sorry. Man.
Okay, now I'm
Peggy, can
unmuted.
you start talking?
Can you hear me?
We can see. So we've got a video thing. We can see that she's talking, but there's no audio coming through right now for some reason.
So if she can try to adjust that.
I've been unmuting and muting. It doesn't seem to do anything.
Peg, I think the microphone on your computer might be muted, but Joyce Elwinger is also on the line, and she had a question. Joyce, can you ask?
I had a question for Kenneth. I just wondered if you know how many others may have received this letter from the warden, because I had heard that there
Okay, this is why, because it's coming through our microphones. So, okay. Sorry, it's our fault. We couldn't hear you on our end.
Well, now you can.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm on. You can hear me? You can hear me. Yeah, the Executive Order 31 is something we've been trying for about maybe 8 years to get them to recognize. Ben? Am I on? Who can hear me?
We can. Hold on. The sound isn't coming through on our thing. Can you play it on your computer? The sound through your computer? Can you hear it?
What am I supposed to do?
Bear with us one moment.
Okay. Peg, can you try again?
Okay, can you hear me? No, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Go ahead, Peg. We get a reverb when we talk to you, so we're gonna mute and let you talk.
Okay. Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, yeah, this executive order, directive 31, we've been trying to open up for years. We've had a lot of, at least two submissions of people to them, and they were not recognized. Finally, they recognized it, that it had to go through the warden, and the warden would decide. And that, okay, always it was nixed. So this is a huge thing on Tate's part, that he's recognizing it and will be the decider, not the warden. On the directive, all the warden is supposed to do is to say whether the guy's parole eligible. So this is fantastic. And the nice thing about the executive order, that it just says extraordinary circumstances. It doesn't give anything about what your sentence is. So I'm delighted.
Ben, you're muted.
Now give me back. I'm done.
Joyce, can you ask your question?
Oh, I was just going to ask Kenneth, is he still on? Is his call finished?
Ben, can you raise your hand if Kenneth is still on?
Guess not. Okay. I can say that I had heard that there was posting at Racine and in the other prisons that said all of those people who were eligible for extended release would be getting a notification. And so I was just wondering, I had heard that only about 2 people had really that they knew of had gotten them and were being called in for these for this opportunity. So I just wondered, because there was this posting that was put up saying, you know, you don't have to, don't be calling us, we'll get in touch with you. And I just wondered where that stood.
Joyce, can you hear me? This is Courtney.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just, it seems like they're having some audio issues. So I was just trying to transcribe in the chat your question that you were under the impression that inmates would get letters as notices for the hearings. Is that correct?
Yes, a notice was posted for the inmates that said, you know, don't be in touch with us. We will be in touch with you if you are eligible, and the social worker will help you fill out the papers.
Basically, you didn't want to be bothered or yelled at.
Exactly.
Sounds about right.
Can you hear me, Joyce?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know for sure there's an executive directive 31 and there's a sentence modification going around? I know the sentence modification is hard to get unless they ask you. The executive director goes to the parole. Do you know for sure which one the memo said?
Well, I thought it was extraordinary release. That was something that Ron.
They're both extraordinary release. One's for TIS and one's for old law.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, never mind. I just it was something that Ron Schilling had sent, so I thought it applied to old law.
Okay, because that's good to know.
So, yeah. Kenneth, do you have anything to add about the old law or Executive Directive 31? I know it was probably hard for you to hear, but so the process that you went through to get that, you know, you had to take action to initiate that, or did the social worker bring it to you?
No, absolutely not. It was because of Peggy Swan's email. And can you please pass on my gratitude for the information that she's been providing, not only to me, but for a lot of guys. Like, we kind of almost live for those emails when they come down, because if you guys remaining provide us with so much information. No, I had to be proactive with it, as far as speaking with the social worker, and even then it seems as though she was almost reluctant to even look that up, because first we thought it was the executive order, until we went back to find out that it was called the Executive Directive 31, and this one sentence only in there that pretty much, it seems, where it says the disparity of one sentence, which is pretty much how I interpreted that, if they implemented us, oh Lord, to making us do past our MRs and stuff like this. So this is how I interpret it and try to fit it to my present situation, and say, hey, I got 25 years off of a 30-year sentence when the judge didn't sentence me to that. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Well, it sounds like they're about to cut us off. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Are you there? Oh, that was it. All right. So can we go back to regularly scheduled? Okay.
Cannot hear.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Thumbs up if you can hear us.
Yep, you're good.
All right, how do we
We'll
hear
fix
that?
our own sound.
Okay.
Hold on.
We can't hear
just
you
go
yet.
ahead right
One
now,
second.
Ben. Just feel
All right, so I'm gonna just go ahead and go back to the introductions that I was trying to do. Technology challenges are more than we anticipated, but we're mainly here today to update everyone on the coronavirus, the COVID compassion campaign. At this point, PEG has sent in 75 clemency waiver requests, and you can find those on prisonforum.org. There are 2 posts that have names, pictures, brief summaries, and scans of the full record. Those PEG put a lot of work into putting those together, and the incarcerated people did a lot of the, they wrote them out themselves, and you can really see their stories and understand, for some people, the real absurdity of the situation of these people being held at risk of coronavirus right now. So
can you just pause one to make sure that people can hear us?
Can everybody hear me all right? Okay. So yeah, as I think everybody on the call knows, these are waivers that are asking Governor Evers to change the criteria that he created that restrict all currently incarcerated people from even being considered for clemency or pardon until 5 years after they've completed all their sentence. Since our first press conference a few weeks ago, we were starting to hear some news that there are people who are going to be released. The first situation that Kenneth was just talking about applies to old law people, and it is through Executive Order 31, which once the warden, as I believe Peggy explained, once the warden says that the person is parole eligible, then it goes to the parole chair, who is John Tate, the parole commission chair, and he has the ability to release people on that. He has the ability to release people who are under the old law in a pretty broad power to do that, and it seems like gradually that is starting to happen more and more. I've attended a bunch of the open public meetings that the Parole Commission has, and I've sent out notes that I hope you all have been able to see about all the different convoluted ways that the DOC and the old commissioners are obstructing the release process. But there is movement on that, and there is broader movement with this news we just got from Kenneth about Executive Directive 31. And so PEG has already put out information about how other people can pursue that, which we would be happy to share. We just saw a question. We don't know that anybody has been released on Executive Directive 31 yet, but the fact that the DOC is participating in getting it to the parole commissioner gives us a hope that there will be more people released on that than, because previously there hadn't been any, and John Tate had told me that he wasn't, that he only one had made it past the gauntlet of the wardens, and this was a few months ago at a parole commission meeting, and he said that he was not going to take action on that, and so he might be changing his tune on that, it sounds like. So that's good news. The steps are the warden needs to just verify that the person is eligible for parole, and then it's supposed to be passed on to the parole commission chair. The wardens have been holding it up, and the wardens have been saying that it's not, that they've been saying that people aren't deserving of parole, when they're just supposed to be saying whether or not they're eligible. And so we have fought, and it seems like, especially with coronavirus, that roadblock is being removed, and they're actually getting through to the commission chair more reliably, and he will be, I hope, taking action on that.
Ben, I'm sorry to interrupt. I do have Donald on the phone calling in from Racine.
Oh, great.
So Donald, can you talk? We'll see if we've got some audio for you.
Okay.
So,
I'm gonna go over here and see.
We're gonna see if they can hear us real quick here first, Donald.
Okay, I can hear.
All right. Okay, so they were muted, and so Donald, if you want to tell us a little bit about you and your situation, where you're at, are you under the old law, and what's going on with you? We'd love to hear it.
Well, my name is Donald Weston. I've been incarcerated now for 26 years. Got incarcerated in 1994 for 2 first-degree intentional homicides, 1 attempted first-degree intentional homicide, and I'm doing life incarceration. And I'm under the old law, and I feel that I should be considered as one who should be given a second chance, because people are redeemable. You know, I am definitely not the person of that night that caused so much pain to so many people. I make no excuses for my actions. I own them. I was wrong. I'm very regretful for it. I pray daily that I could take my actions back, because that person was not me. That was not me at all. I am not who that person was. And I have been fighting every day since to try to show not just the courts or anything like that, but the people who was affected the most, and that's the people that lost their lives and their loved ones, you know, and to show them that I am redeemable, you know. I'm a person who can be trusted, a person who can be released into the community and do the community good and not harm. You know, I come from a family of good people, people who wanted to see me go the right way in life, you know, and where I am is not a reflection of who I am, you know, and it's hard to explain, but at the same time, there's so many guys in my situation that need another chance to be out there, to be free, because there are people that's counting on us and need our guidance and things of that nature, and we have it to give, but we're being warehoused into this place, and we can't give our loved ones the guidance that they need, or not just our loved ones, but the community as a whole. You have men that's been incarcerated now for 20, 30, 40 years, and they have so much to give to society, but society can never see it if we're not given a second chance. You know, we need that opportunity. You know, you got this virus that's going on around right now, this coronavirus. and you got a lot of guys in here who have health complications, myself being one. I'm a chronic asthmatic, and we trapped in here. You know, social distancing is truly impossible in this place like this. Just as I was on the phone talking yesterday, I'm standing next to a person that's not even 2 feet away from me. I can smell his body odor. You know, if he speaks, I smell his breath. You know, and that's the extent of social distancing here. You know, whether we eating, whether we're in the bathroom, showering, whatever's going on, we're in close encounters with each other. And you know, if the virus got into a place like this, a lot of people will lose their lives. You know, and not just mine, but so many other people.
Donald, if I may ask, I have a question from Amanda. She has a fiance in Oshkosh under the old law. She was asking if you've seen Parole yet, or if you've written anything in for the Executive Directive 31.
I have not seen Parole, and yet, because my parole eligibility is so far off into the space, it's ridiculous. 2064.
Oh.
And
All calls other than properly placed attorney calls may be monitored and recorded.
The Executive Directive 31, I just got made aware of that, I believe yesterday. So can you fill me in on that?
Sure, I'm actually gonna. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so so Executive Directive 31 is something that we have been trying to advocate for the Parole Commission Chair, John Tate, to use more often. And thus far he has not been willing, but it sounds like we are starting to get a breakthrough on that. And so if we can get the social workers, the DOC social workers are, at least in some cases, are working with people to get your application for relief under Executive Directive 31 past the warden and to the Parole Commission Chair, John Tate. And he previously has told me, like when I met him at one of the Parole Commission meetings, and he said that he was not going to act on those. But I think in the context of coronavirus and the fact that the DOC social workers are helping, we are starting to see some movement on that. And so that's very positive news, and I definitely advise people to look into it.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said that. Now I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I went and talked to our social worker about, I didn't know that's what it was called, but I talked to her about being released as one of the most at risk of this virus. And she said that it did not affect me because I was old law. And it was only for guys under truth and sentencing. So that's not true.
Can I talk?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, there's two. There's one, the executive directive is for all law. You name the circumstances. The one for truth and sentencing is a sentence modification. And the only one they are doing it is you have to be 60 years of felony of C or under. It wouldn't affect you. There is an extraordinary circumstance there for somebody under 60. But so there's two. What we want to know is are the social workers actually handing out, letting you know about the Executive Directive 31. We will have it in the newsletter so everybody will see it. Get one. So we know they are handing out the truth and sentencing one.
Okay,
So,
all right.
so your social work.
Executive Order 31.
Okay, so your social worker hasn't been educating you guys on this.
No, not at all. When I'm done with this call, I'm going to talk to her, though. She's right here.
That's always helpful when they're on the unit.
Right. Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to say is we have very poor health care here, you know? I'm going to give you an example. I wrote I wrote and asked them to send me an asthma inhaler. Like I said, I'm a chronic asthmatic. And they responded and said they could not send me one because I didn't have an order in from the doctor to receive one. So I wrote them back and asked for it again. Again, they didn't send it. So I wrote them back and told them, I said, I'm a chronic asthmatic. I have been my entire life. I've had several asthma attacks while incarcerated. It's all documented. Why do a doctor have to order something that we know exists already? Do y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Have you been given the inhalers in there previously?
Yes. Of course, yes. But listen, after I wrote the third time last night, they sent me 2 inhalers, not 1, but 2.
Well, I guess better feast than famine. We're glad they eventually got you taken care of.
Yes, but it's just the process, the thinking behind everything that goes on. You know, if you in dire need, man, bad things can happen. God forbid, you know.
And that same thinking seems to be going on with coronavirus. We've got some testing numbers, and there's a real lack of testing. Racine is actually one of the places that has had more testing without having any positive tests. Are there people there with symptoms, or do you know anything about what's going on as far as like testing and preventative measures?
As far as here, we have no cases of the virus here, no positives at all. They have made preparations for if somebody do get infected to where they're housed away from everybody else. But as of right now, there are no cases within this institution, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Are your guards using proper PPE? Are they using masks and gloves and things like that on the unit?
You have maybe 1 or 2 I have seen. Everybody else, no. They issued us all masks and all that. You have some guys who wear them. You have some guys who don't wear them. But they are not mandatory that we have to wear them. I only think maybe I can count on one hand how many guards I have seen wear masks. The majority don't wear them.
Mm-hmm. We're hearing that across the system, that there's very few guards who actually bother to protect themselves.
Attorney calls may be monitored and recorded.
Things are not even being properly sanitized. I try to teach how to sanitize areas, but people don't listen. They do what they want to do, you know. And then we don't have people making them do it. You know, we don't have guards. You know, you have one or 2 guards here or there that may show up that's consistent with making sure things happen the way it's supposed to happen. But the majority, no, not at all.
The other thing we're worried about is just that, you know, prison's already a tense and stressful environment for people to be living in. Does the presence of coronavirus, I'm sure that escalates all of that, but how are things like, what's the mood at Racine Correctional right now?
Can you repeat that? I didn't catch all that.
Sure. He's asking, you know, with prison already being a tense environment, now that with the introduction of the threat of COVID or coronavirus being in there, what's the mood like in there? Is it changing anything on the guards end or the inmates end?
Well, no, the mood, everybody seems pretty laid back, you know, calm. You have some people who are more tense than others, but that's, you know, that's because they're scared, which we all have a reason to be scared, you know. And those are the ones that you see who wear a mask, always wiping things down, which is a good thing, you know. But for the most part, no tensions or no anger issues or none of that has taken place. None of that. Everything is the attitude is calm, normal. You know,
That's good to hear.
Or from staff or inmates, none of them.
Well, definitely happy to hear that hasn't escalated.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Are you guys?
You can also attribute that to the disease not being present here that we know of yet.
Sure.
You know, now if it comes, all that may change, because you know.
Sure. Then it becomes a real threat.
Exactly. All that may change.
I have a gentleman from the Wisconsin Examiner. His name is Isaiah Holmes, and he's a reporter on the call with us. He's asking, can you guys still watch the news and get outside information about the virus and updates?
Yes, we can. We have our own televisions, and we have a television in the day room too. So I watch the news every day. I watch the news every day, all day, so I can be in the know on how I can protect myself and the people around me too in this environment. Because like I said, I'm an asthmatic, and it attacks the lungs. So if I get it, I know my chances of beating it is pretty slim, So I want to know.
Absolutely. Amanda asked if you have seen PRC yet, or if you've been given any programs.
All the programs that I was required to get, I have completed every last one of them, and I have took the initiative to complete a multitude of programs on my own. As far as me bettering myself.
Good for you.
And I just saw PRC today.
What did they have to say?
I asked to be sent to a minimum, but they said they couldn't send me to a minimum because parole had to endorse it, and I haven't seen the parole board to endorse it, so I was rejected on that.
So yeah, there was a few months ago at one of the parole commission hearings, John Tate talked about a draft memo that he had where he was asking for changes to the way PRC and the security level people. What's that?
But they are not abiding by that.
They're not following.
They are not using that at all. The PRC lady that I spoke to by telephone, because they're doing it by telephone, she said that she would love to send me the minimum because of my conduct is good and because I've been incarcerated for so long, but she can't send me because I haven't been endorsed by the parole board. I haven't seen them.
When is your next hearing?
A year from now. But also, due to the fact that I've been in this institution for 10 years, she's recommended that I move to another institution. So they only allow us to stay at certain institutions for so long. I've been here almost 10 years now. 10 years this year. So I'll be going to another institution, I believe, soon. I don't know when.
And what do they hope that's going to do for you, moving you to the next institution?
It's all warehousing. They just moving bodies around. They just they don't want you. Once you at a certain place for so long, you become familiar with the place, the staff, and all that. And they try to not let that happen. So moving me around is just moving me around. That's all.
Okay.
There is no intended purpose or real intent anyway. It's just one warehouse to another warehouse.
Just a way to shake you up.
May be monitored and recorded.
Say it again.
I said just a way to shake you up.
Yeah, one warehouse to another warehouse. That's it.
I have a question, Donald. There is the COVID in other prisons, and I have been wondering why it is we cannot. A lot of the prisoners don't have adequate. They don't have adequate soap, let alone disinfectant. What does the DOC have against you having? It would be 70% alcohol. Why is that so completely? Especially if you're stuck in your cell and all that comes into you is guards without gloves, with no masks, and they're carrying COVID. There's COVID in the prison. Why? What is the reason that the inmates themselves cannot have disinfectant in their cells?
Because the reason why is because we got guys who will misuse it. Unfortunately, you got guys who would do something crazy with alcohol. I have witnessed guys drink mouthwash because they think it'll get them drunk. I done witnessed guys eat orange pills, try to get high. I done witnessed a whole lot of craziness. And that's one of the main reasons why they won't allow us to have certain things, because guys have already abused it in the past. And
Couldn't they figure out which ones? Does that mean nobody can have it?
yes, ma'am, that means nobody can have it. It'll be contraband.
Those priorities seem so crooked to me that like the possibility that somebody might get intoxicated or try to get intoxicated means that everybody has to be put into danger.
All right.
1 minute.
Yep, Donald, we got 1 minute. So anything else that you'd like to tell us?
I appreciate everything y'all doing from the bottom of my heart. God bless all of y'all. And continue to fight because I'm going to continue to fight.
Okay, and once again, Donald, that's Executive Directive 31 is what you're going to ask your social worker about.
Yes, I'm going to do that right now.
And that is specifically for old law, not necessarily truth in sentencing.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donald. We appreciate you calling in.
All right. All right. Will I get something on my tablet for this? I mean, as far as how this go, information.
We're going to try to work on that.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Thanks, Donald.
All right. So yeah, that was our second call from somebody inside. It's very difficult to know exactly when people are going to be calling, and so structuring this has been a little bit shaky for that reason. So our efforts with the clemency campaign has not resulted in the governor granting any clemencies to any of the people that we have filed these clemency waivers for. I called the governor's office. I called his policy advisor. They have not returned those calls. There was a reporter who talked to somebody from the governor's office who said that they are not going to be issuing any clemencies or doing anything like that, but they put it off on the parole commission chair. So the fact that that is the public statement that they're making means that old law prisoners are, possibly is where the governor is trying to put responsibility onto John Tate and off of himself, and also onto the judges through the sentencing modification things. I think, my interpretation and my opinion is that the governor is trying to not take responsibility for things. What's that? Oh, there's a. Yeah, we don't have any updates on MSDF. We know that there have been cases there, both incarcerated people and staff. Alan Schultz is on the call, and I'm going to unmute him and give him a chance. Alan, have you heard anything from MS?
No, the only thing I know of is the same thing everybody else knows, basically off the DOC website, which I think at last count it was 6 staff positive, and I believe it's now 4 incarcerated were positive there, or I might be off on that.
And I'm looking at the population numbers right now, and MSDF is definitely, some of the releases have happened at MSDF, but it's still it's not emptying out, which is what really needs to happen because of the nature of MSDF and the short and the fast turnaround there, and the way that it connects to the communities, and it. Yeah. So sorry, Isaiah, that we don't have more information from there. So the next thing we wanted to do on the call is give Joyce Ellwanger a chance to read a letter from Ron Schilling, who is somebody who's been incarcerated under the old law for a very long time. So yeah, Joyce, go ahead.
I will. I just wanted to say here in Milwaukee, our pre-release centers house, about 100 people each. And at Felmers Cheney, there are 5 people infected with the virus, and that's growing every day. The same thing at Marshall Shearer. It's gone from 2 people to 3 people. So This is the kind of thing that we really find so very worrisome for all of the prisons that have. And there's so little testing going on. I'm sure there's a lot more happening in all the prisons, but this is the letter. I wanted, Ron wasn't able to get on the telephone, so I did want to read his statement. My personal situation is particularly troubling. I will be 69 years old next month. On 4/04/18, I had a relatively simple venous ablation medical procedure performed and was subsequently infected in the process. That problem cascaded to cause many other medical problems and culminated in a 12-hour heart operation. When inquiring about the cost, I was informed I could not add up all the zeros, and it continued to prove a drastic expense to me and to the state. Losing 40 pounds during the infection and surgery and recovery, I had to endure massive amounts of oral and IV antibiotics. I continue taking oral antibiotics today and will require them for the foreseeable future. Consequently, it has compromised my immune system. Moreover, ever since I was infected, I've had serious COPD issues and a congestion problem, making it difficult to breathe. HSU started me on 2 inhalers, which seemed to help a bit, but the underlying problem continues. Moreover, for the past couple of months, my breathing has been particularly problematic. I have recurring PTSD and am hypervigilant and a terribly light sleeper. Some nights are terrifying as I awake gasping for breath. But what scares me the most is catching COVID-19. By virtue of our overcrowded situation, a hot zone of coronavirus activity looms large over the entire prison system. It is a lose-lose situation because social distancing is only a luxury in as much as space allows. In the prison setting, there is no space. We're crammed like sardines, being exposed to the highest viral doses in the country with no realistic prevention measures to keep COVID-19 from spreading to every living one and person working in these facilities. Our prisons could quickly become virtual death camps as the number of prisoners far outnumber that of hospital beds. I am not sentenced to death. Ron has been in prison for 46 years, and he was an accomplice to a drug deal gone bad, and there was a homicide that happened. He did not was never convicted of that, but got a life sentence for being an accomplice to that event.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so I also, well, do you want to talk a little bit about the work that you do with Wisdom and the Old Law Group and ways that people can plug into that as well?
Okay. Well, you know, Wisdom has 11 affiliates, really 12 across the state now, and we've been working side by side with you and in complementary ways, and then in other ways. We just finished a week of intense lobbying and call-ins and Twitter and chalk talks. Every day we were contacting either the governor, the DOC, the Parole Commission. Again, we support, along with the ACLU, there are all kinds of ways that people can be released from prison and people that are eligible. We're beginning to see a little bit of movement, and we're pleased with that. I think all of our efforts together are making a difference, and they're not falling on deaf ears. I spoke with one of our judges here in Milwaukee just this week, and she says that you know, all of the DOC and the Parole Commission are meeting with the judges, and that she expected that we might be hearing something soon about some more people being able to be released. So I don't know what that means, but she's someone with real integrity, and she would not say that unless there was something in the works. we're always waiting, I think, for that, but we are beginning to see more people being released, and we remain hopeful and vigilant, and we certainly support all of these efforts as well, and appreciate the work that FFUP is doing. And so we work beside you and with you as we can.
So I have some numbers to put with that slow progress that Joyce just described. The DOC population between March 20th and May 1st went down by 882 people. That's only 3.7%, but it is something, and it is a start. And so we've gone from 23,417 to 22,535 in their last of their weekly reports. So that's the good news. And it seems like that seems to be a hodgepodge of John Tate releasing more people on parole, plus some of this other truth in sentencing sentence modification for elderly people seems to be part of what's going on there. And then also the fact that they're not bringing more people into the system. So people who are normally being released anyway. But the bad news is about testing. In the Wisconsin Department of Corrections, according to their numbers, they have only tested 146 people. That's 0.65% of their capacity or of their population have actually been tested. And of those 146 people, 18 have tested positive. And if you compare those numbers to the statewide numbers, it is a pretty drastic difference. There have been more than almost 86,000 tests in the Wisconsin across the whole state, and that is a rate of testing of 1.5%. And they have had about 8,000 positive tests, which is just less than 10% that came back positive. So despite the fact that tests from the prison have been coming back positive significantly more often, the DOC is testing people in prison half as often as the state is testing people across the state. We also know that conditions in prison cause them to cause the virus to spread quickly, and so we have heard about outbreaks at the House of Corrections, at the Kenosha County Jail and Pre-Release Center, and then we've also heard about other states where they do actual robust testing. They tested a facility in Ohio and came back with like 73% of people testing positive. And some of the facilities in Wisconsin that have had the most exposure, like Columbia Correctional, where multiple people have tested positive, both guards and incarcerated people, or Waupun Correctional, where the exposure started with a doctor bringing the coronavirus from Italy directly into the prison. They have done very few tests at those two facilities. And we know that people are sick in those facilities and people are requesting tests in those facilities, and they're still not getting those tests. Meanwhile, other facilities that have had no exposure are getting the bulk of that 146 tests, which is not enough testing for anywhere, but it's particularly troubling that they seem to be avoiding testing people in facilities that have had exposure. And I worry that means that the DOC is actually trying to cover up and make it look like they've got the situation contained. Well, it may be occurring on a much broader scale inside than we know.
Has anybody heard that the National Guard is going in this month to help with testing in the DOC? That was something that I had heard, and I just wanted to wondered if anyone else had heard that.
I had not. I've heard, fears that might happen, but I have not heard that it was occurring.
Not verified. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I just.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd just like to add that the only known places that I know of the National Guard actually being called into is Kenosha County Jail and the House of Corrections. And I believe last count was like 105 at House Corrections and something like 19 at Kenosha County.
Yeah. One of the people that is at Kenosha County awaiting trial that we've been doing support for is Crystal Kaiser, and she actually tested positive. She's a young woman who was being sex trafficked by, she's a young black woman from Milwaukee who was being sex trafficked by a older white guy from Kenosha, and despite him being arrested and the police finding child pornography and all kinds of things and his bank account being frozen, the police never, the Kenosha police never did anything to address the situation. And Crystal ended up defending herself and killing him. His name is Jeffrey Villar, or Randy Villar, sorry. And so, yeah, we've been doing support for her trial, and then just the other day heard that she actually tested positive. She was feeling very sick over a week ago, and so she's hopefully on the mend and is recovering. But yeah, that's just another situation that we're aware of. I'm gonna maybe let people ask questions. I'm gonna go through and Ty, can you go through and kind of unmute people who are just on via the phones?
Sure. Do we want to start with Alan?
Sure. Alan, do you have any questions?
Not immediately. I think everything was pretty much put out as much as we know. Like, I'm like hopeful that there's going to be more testing, but like the rhetoric I'm seeing covering from Governor Evers is just really upsetting me because he keeps saying certain things and I'm not seeing enough being done by the numbers when I'm looking at them. And I know most folks out here don't think of the population inside like that, so they just constantly overlook to the degree that that testing's being done. I feel that's happening on a large scale even outside. I feel a lot of people in Wisconsin feel a lot of people have been tested here, and there really hasn't been a lot of people tested here. And we're all assuming it's not that bad, but we don't know the scope of it because there isn't testing or tracking happening out here or inside.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was more that I'm hoping that he does this 85,000 tests he thinks he can do in a week, but I don't know where he's planning on doing it and why did he wait so long to do it. And why didn't he take initiative like some of these other governors have in either retooling certain businesses to do that or having bought it from elsewhere? It makes no sense to me. It feels like stalling, and I don't know. I don't have any questions. It's just really statements. Because like, I mean, like, what else is there to ask? It's getting really pretty obvious with this now.
Yeah, there were some press releases last week that the governor's office put out, and they posted on social media about how they're setting up drive-in test sites in like northern counties where there haven't been any positive tests yet, and where people are generally less, the population density is lower, so they tend to be at lower risk up there, and yet the tests so whatever increased testing capacity they have is not going to the most at-risk people in the prisons, but rather to people who are, some of the more safe folks on the outside. I'll go through and I'll unmute Amanda if you want to say anything, Amanda, or ask any questions. I can't seem to unmute. Okay.
I'm unmuted now. Sorry, I mute myself. I get paranoid. So I actually have two questions. One, does anybody have more information about the Freedom of Information request that the ACLU filed? Like what the due date that the DOC has to provide those documents by? And what the objective was?
I don't know a whole lot about that specific records request. We've done records requests a lot, and they are sometimes very, very slow and very late. But hopefully the fact that the ACLU, a larger organization, did that one and put out press releases around it, so there's pressure on them. We've been told that the DOC, we've been told to expect like a 10 business day turnaround time on open records requests, but there have been months and months where we haven't gotten responses back. So part of it depends on what it is that you're requesting, and the other part of it depends on whether or not the DOC, feels real pressure to follow up and do that. I just recently got a request that I had filed on Christmas Eve about a disturbance at Waupun. And so, yeah, that was just last week. So sometimes it takes that long. I expect that with the ACLU's backing and the fact that they've gotten press around it, the DOC is going to go faster on that. But I don't know exactly specifically what it is that they're requesting.
Okay, thanks. I know that the objective is probably just to get more understanding of what they have or have not done based off of the lack of transparency. So any press is good press in this perspective. The other question I have is for Joyce. You had mentioned in talking about someone that had said that they were going to judges and working with the Parole Commission. Can you give us a little bit more detail about that?
That's really what I know. This is
you guys said she was reputable. Who is she?
Hannah Dugan. Many of you know Hannah Dugan. And I, again, she had nothing that she could say now. And so I've told you what she said. And I think that we can stay tuned and be watching for something to be developing. She seemed to be quite hopeful about it.
Is she, I'm sorry, I don't know who she is. Is she with DOC?
No, she's a judge here in Milwaukee.
Okay. So that wasn't specific to old law? Ben's head was shaking, so I would assume no.
Probably not.
Okay. Thank you.
We have also, I've reached out to the activist lawyer friend, and he is interested in trying to help support that angle as well, but we haven't gotten any news. I did hear an interview where Mary Trigiano, who is the chief judge here in Milwaukee, spoke on how they are trying to deal with courts for people who have, more recently been arrested and are still awaiting trial. And it seemed like she was taking an active role in that. And so hopefully, she's in a position where she can be an ally to expediting sentence reductions and things like that too. So we're going to be trying to reach out to her. And hopefully there'll be a process that loved ones can plug into in the future that to get sentence reductions. Historically, sentence reductions have been a very, very long shot, difficult thing to get through. Is there anyone else on the call who's able to unmute yourselves who would like to ask any questions or add any information?
I guess I would. I think we're going up a really steep mountain, and we're getting a little bit of what we need. And but if we want to really get released, who need to be released, we need to go beyond our groups. And so I hope that enough of this group and we get bigger, each of us reaching out to people who don't know about prisons. That I think from my experience, it is mostly through embarrassment that action happens. That's all they're really afraid of.
Yeah, so we are going to have another one of these calls. So we're trying to do two different forms of these calls. Every other week, we're going to do a public call where we invite media, send out press releases, and save a recording of the video and post it. So that'll happen again in 2 weeks on May 19th. But next weekend, we're going to have an organizing call where everybody can, plug in and share notes with each other, and have that be really about how we can, update whatever information we've been able to gather and processes that people can plug into, both in terms of like individually advocating for your loved one, but also in terms of increasing public awareness and